r/NoSleep. Posted by u/mbird304. We went into their territory and they initiated a game of hide and seek. Part 2. Please like and subscribe to support us. When the announcements turned off, we were basically only met with silence. We didn't really know what else to say to these students. We didn't know what to say to them, nor have we even met them before. As the monster kept on hitting on the door, the three students silent as they looked at us in horror, I grabbed my phone to go look at the time. It was about 10 o'clock around that time if I recall. A girl began to whisper out, getting up to walk over to Hunter and I. About Elijah. Do any of you know what it's like out there, and did any of you happen to see him? She asks. Or do you at least know what's going on in the school? I ended up cutting her off. Elijah wanted to try and get out anyway. We saw a monster get him, I say to the girl, not seeing a point to say that Hunter and I didn't see him. Hunter began to head over to the desks of the classroom to grab to push against the door the monster is banging against. We don't know how much of those things are in the school, he chimed in. I began to head over to help. The two kids that had not stood up yet went over to help us put things against the door. They were both two guys. What are your names? We never saw you before, I ask as I turn to the three students. Alexis Bailey. Alexis introduces herself, then one of the guys introduced himself as Liam Grabble, and the other guy introduced himself as Kyle Hall. Then Hunter and I introduced ourselves, Amber Woods, and Hunter Barnes. Hunter then glanced at the second door that seemed to connect to a classroom. We should go and barricade these as well, at least in case the creature gets any ideas, he tells us, and I end up nodding in agreement, grabbing what was left of desks and the chairs and go to barricade. Then we ended up sitting down and only waiting as the monster kept on hitting on the door. It felt probably like hours. Hunter, Liam, Alexis, Kyle and I had nothing to say to each other. What could we say? I know maybe talking might ease some tension, but we could not really ignore the creature banging on the door. I don't know how some other creatures weren't attracted, but perhaps the other creatures were busy, it's possible. Hours later, it was Saturday at that point. Hunter and Kyle fell asleep. Honestly, I'm not even sure how they did that with the sound that was going on. The creature that was banging on the door was gone hours later, thankfully. I wasn't doing nothing those hours, I kind of just stared off into space. After I no longer heard the monsters, I pulled out my phone. It was about 8 a.m., which didn't really feel like that many hours. Then again, we did do nothing all this time. I went to get up and check out the window. From what I could tell, it definitely was day out. It was just like a lighter fog, but we still couldn't see shit outside. What would you say we do now? Alexis asks me, walking to my side. I only shrug. I'm not sure if we can really end up doing much right now. Are you guys hungry? I ask, crossing my arms. Perhaps Hunter and I know I'll just head down to the cafeteria to end up grabbing food for them, just something small that they can get. Alexi frowned. Yeah, a little bit. The only food I really got yesterday was the breakfast from home. Some of us don't even eat breakfast at school, Alexis says. Slowly nodding, I went to go search the room for some kind of bag. I'll go down to the cafeteria, I tell her. And by myself too, if one of you guys are with me it'll make more noise. Alexis was about to protest, then Hunter and Kyle wake up. Liam looked at me as then I began to move the desks and chairs that connected to a classroom. Hunter got up quickly and went over, putting a hand on my shoulder. What are you doing? He asks me. Going to grab some food, just something small that they can eat, maybe some water too, I say, not really wanting him to intervene. People can survive without food longer than they can survive without water. The faucets aren't working. I'm coming. Why? Hunter began. Hunter, no, I cut him off. I know we went together before, but right now this needs to be a quick in and out, I say, insisting as he went to go. At least help me take away the desks and chairs to exit. At least text me to give me updates, Hunter says, possibly aware he was not going to change my mind. Well, I'm a fucking idiot. Just to get things cleared up now, I have a bit of a temper, that's going to end up playing a part later, or eventually. Not to mention I kind of need someone to end up being the calm to my storm, the voice of reason if you want to call it that. It would be kind of like what Hunter is. Now I know a lot of people would end up saying they'd survive a situation like say zombies and act completely rational or whatever. Yeah, you never really know how you'd act until a situation actually happens. Upon exiting the classroom, I had a bag with me. Willing to at least listen to what Hunter was saying. He's right. People can go on longer without food than they can without water, so I'll go and focus on water. Everything did go smoothly, beside hearing faint chattering noises as I went to head down to the cafeteria. I tried to be as quiet as I possibly could and quick as I possibly could. Upon heading to the cafeteria, I stopped. I thought I smelled something, like food? Like something was cooking. There was also chattering noises, loud chattering noises emitting from the cafeteria. It doesn't make sense for anything to even be cooked. There was light busting out of the cafeteria as well. When I finally peeked in, I didn't bother to go in there completely, I just had to see what was going on. It seemed like some morbid fiesta that was going on in there. I could see like 10 of these things. They sat white clothes over tables. There seemed to be movement in the very back of the cafeteria where food was made at. Instead of a chattering noise, loud croaking began to come from one of them as they clapped their hands, which seemed to be in a giddy manner. Like it was happy. These clearly were not all of these creatures, at least I'm confident there was more in the school. Then the door from the very back had swung open. It seemed there was plates that the creature, who I'm assuming was a chef, had entered with. They began to set plates down at the tables. I could make out a leg, maybe a torso of a guy. There seemed to be one of the intestines strung line sausages over the torso like a decoration. Then that's when they began to feast. I went to go peek my head in a bit more just to see if Shelley's remains still were there. But no, there was nothing, no blood, no nothing. These things cleaned it up. These things got together like normal people to go eat. Of course what they were eating was not normal, but they were eating together as if they were friends or family, and the sounds they were making seemed friendly. Could they notice me? Were they just not interested because they were already eating something? Well, I definitely can't get water here. No more time to gawk at these things. I began to go and run off to go somewhere else. Hey Hunter, the cafeteria is occupied. Aaron, have to go to a vending machine or something. Hell, maybe a freezer in a teacher's classroom or something, I sent. I quickly get a response as I get to a classroom that was clearly for math. What? What do you mean occupied? Hunter sent. I saw a freezer in the classroom and went over to check it out. There was nothing beside food in there. I went to go to my phone. It was weird. About 10 of these things got together and then they were eating like normal everyday people. I sent to Hunter. I only looked back at my phone to see that it showed read. So he couldn't figure out what to say. I don't blame him. It was very weird to even witness. I began to go peek into the classrooms once I exited the current classroom. I didn't see a freezer until I ended up going to see what looked like a classroom for government. You could see a Bill of Rights on display at one side of the whiteboard in the room. I opened the door with ease, then entered. I could still at least hear chattering noises, well, the noises of those creatures. Heading to the freezer, there just happened to be more than enough water bottles. I went to go and fill up the bag with them, ready to at least keep my wrench on standby. Hey, a girl began. Then I turned, pointing the wrench to the direction I heard the voice. It was a ginger girl. She had her hair in a ponytail and she seemed pale. There was a big ass closet that seemed open. Yeah, thank God for these closets or whatever they are even appearing in school. I didn't say anything. I need help, the girl says as she seemed to get close to me. I only backed away as I stood up, swinging the bag over my shoulder. Get away, I say. But I need help. The girl's eyes widened as she seemed desperate in a way. Why the hell is she waiting just now to go to me? Does she want a water? Well, too bad she has not even went over to here. I would probably be more sympathetic if I was close with her, but this was another student I did not even know the name of. I don't know if it's heartless, but I can't bring someone else to the classroom. Hunter and the rest are holding a pen. No, I growl. Yes, I growled. I backed up to the door. But. No buts. My God, I can't bring someone with me. I snap. Then the girl seemed to get angry. Call me stupid, I've earned that name calling. Instead of backing up quickly, the girl ended up charging at me, tackling me to the ground. But you should have been expecting that. Well, I didn't keep it in mind. The bag of water bottles had fell, but I still had a strong grip on the wrench I had. The girl went to try and take the bag of water as she straddled me. Then that was when I whacked her upside the head with the wrench hard. She fell. I climbed on top of her and whacked again, only stopping when I heard the chattering noises. No, they're coming. The girl beneath me panicked. Then as she began to struggle, I put the wrench I was holding in her mouth and pressed down hard as she began to scream, as I'm sure it was hurting. I reached over to grab a pen that was on the floor, then I stabbed her in the eye, grabbing my wrench back as I grabbed the bag and began to run as I heard her screaming, The monsters seemingly now focused on her crying as her cries turned into loud blood-curdling screams. The sound of bones breaking and chomping and loud chattering echoed down the hall as I ran way too fast. Never try to text while you are running and already carrying something. It's very difficult. Heading back, remove the desks and chairs I sent. Then Hunter quickly sends a thumbs up. When heading to the room, the door swung open and Alexis was standing there. I quickly entered, then sat the bag down as I was panting, Liam and Kyle quickly moving to go put the desks and chairs to the door once it shut. Hunter crouched down beside me, immediately pulling me into a hug. I hugged him back, not realizing how shaky I was. "Well, fuck yeah," Kyle exclaimed as he walked over to the bag and pulled out a water. "Oh my god. We should be good for a little bit if we use it carefully." Liam chimes in optimistically. Alexis let out a sigh of relief. She glanced at my direction as the two guys were being happy over water being there. "Amber, Hunter told us about the text involving those creatures meeting in the cafeteria," Alexis began as I look at her, slowly beginning to feel sick knowing I used somebody as bait. "Did you happen to see anything else?" she asks. I shook her head. Then I looked down at the ground. Hunter and I were both at the cafeteria. A student named Shelley was looking for help. Monsters went and got her. She was ripped apart. When I poked my head into the cafeteria, the area where Shelley's remains should be were gone, I explained, my voice shaky. It was just disturbing to see them act like this. The creatures seemed to be conversing in their own way. A creature who seemed to be the chef had entered the main cafeteria, setting plates of food down. Then there was just silence as they all stared at me. Hunter covered his mouth as he looked at the ground, trying to think, or at least that's what I assumed. I don't think he knew how to feel about that. Talking about this brought up the person or thing who was talking over the PA system. We never really saw who was speaking over the PA system either. Were they a human, or a thing like them? As a matter of fact, I don't know if anybody even dared to go over to the principal's office. If I had to guess, what if those monsters were waiting for someone to try? They could easily go and attack. It seemed this area of the school was mostly clean of these creatures. Liam, Alexis and Kyle went to go dig into the cabinets of the art room to probably see what to do to pass the time. Teachers always kept games anywhere. Hunter looked at me. "How was the entire trip overall?" he asks. My eyes just widened as I recalled using somebody as bait. She probably just wanted help. If I let her come with. I used somebody as bait in one of the classrooms who tried to take the bag away from me. I murmur, looking at him. He could only frown, and as he opened his mouth to speak, then that's when our heads snapped to see Kyle laughing as he had a pack of Uno cards. "Oh thank fuck. We can play some Uno." And that was exactly what we did. That was kind of what we did the entire day. We eventually grabbed a board game, Monopoly. Yeah, Monopoly takes forever, but we had to just pass the time, at least have fun. But it was all forced talking. If it was in normal school every day, we wouldn't have paid a second glance to each other. This was just forced talking, and we were all going to fall to some sort of fate. We probably messed around, grabbing some computer paper to draw while we were just waiting for the creatures to come near our area. We messed around probably until nighttime on Saturday, hell probably a bit into midnight, then we fell asleep. It was like 1 p.m. on Sunday. Yes, we sleep a lot of hours. Then that's when there was loud banging on the door. Someone was crying. A human was crying. Hunter and I looked at each other, then looked at Liam, Alexis and Kyle. They shared the same thoughts. We held a finger to our mouths in a shushing motion. "Don't let him in." Then the crying seemed to move into a croaking sound, then it went into a loud shriek sound, something no longer human. "What the fuck?" Kyle whisper hisses as he scrambles away from the door. Well, he was away, but he sure as hell didn't want to be any closer. Now just easily we all were sweating. We all stood up, ready to run or do something, something being the key. We sure as hell did not want to freeze. Then there was the shrieking, then what seemed like a weak thump on the door, then a scratches, then the scratching seemed to drag across the door, to a wall, then to another door, and it seemed to be further away. We thought we were okay, but then it seemed to go and move back upwards to our area, another weak thump against the door. Then continued with the scratches and then the thumps, the scratching seeming to get far away each time. It wasn't big, the thumps weren't crazy from it. And the creature seemed to be just patrolling the hallway. "What do we do now?" Liam asks. It's clearly waiting for somebody to exit. I look down at the ground, putting a hand to my chin. "Maybe we could team up on trying to kill it?" "You're not thinking." Hunter begins. I turn to look at him. "Well, do you think we should try and kill it?" I ask Hunter. Alexis seemingly froze upon hearing it. Like ganging up on it? Kyle asks. Yes, that's exactly correct, I reply. Well, that was when we tried to search the room for things to at least put together. We worked toward grabbing a hold of scissors or some box cutters, which we could only find 3. It was weird to me, but I guess the art teacher in here just wanted to be sure she had a lot of tools. There was a bunch of cardboard things about in here after all. Then next we went to go and remove the chairs and desks away from the main door, the creature sounding far away. Alexis grabbed a newspaper to put in her other hand, armed with scissors and a newspaper roll. Damn, this was a nice Sunday. When Hunter opened the door, the creature was close enough to us, close enough that Alexis was the first to run at it. She shoved the newspaper in its mouth, so that made sense. Smart. The creature itself was smaller, and it seemed more skinny. There was fur on it, it had a reptilian-looking tail. But what was weird is that it walked like a human, its legs looked human. Well, that's when I went and gave the monster a big swing in the head with my wrench as it continued to struggle. Black blood splashed, it seemed to be easy to break, muffled screams going into the newspaper. Kyle was the one to end up stabbing it in the head, it still struggled. But then Hunter climbed on top to stab it in the head with even more force. That was when it stopped moving. We all headed back to the room to go put the chairs and desks to the door again. Don't go and rub your eyes or anything if that thing's blood got on your hands, Hunter says to the group. Then after we all were just waiting in silence, the creature's legs only coming up in my head. We all nod in unison as we sat in silence. This is where I'm going to stop typing for this time. I'll give updates best I can.